Hi everyone, it's Ali and thanks so much for joining me again on the Heffy Doodle YouTube channel. Today I'm going to show you this bright and colourful card using some of the new release. And the first set that I'm going to use is Wingman set with the dies, which is a fantastic set with these really cute little birds. And also the Thanks Heffy cut die, as well as the stencil, the Unbe-leaf-able stencil, that's new. And I'm also going to show you how to mask or use masking on your stencils as well. So I'm just going to place, I've already masked up that stencil and I'm going to place it over my white card. And I'm using here the Heffy tape dispenser and refill, the Heffy masking tape dispenser and refill, which is really handy tape and it's really good for masking, stays on really well and doesn't shift, and the colour hasn't bled as well, which is really great. And then I'm just using some washi tape to secure that down. Now I'm going to use two inks, the Evergreen bough and the twisted citron. I'm starting with the Evergreen bough and I'm just going to I started with moving my tool around in a circle, and then I decided that actually twisting it a little bit in the one spot seemed to work a bit better to get the ink into the fine leaves of that stencil. So that was the technique that I used for the rest of the stenciling, and it was really quite easy. I didn't spend too much time worrying about where the colour was or anything like that. I just got a good covering of that darker green first, just over the stencil, and I've masked off the centre one, so I'm just going to get a nice edge around the edge of the card with my stencil. So I'm just going to need to do the other side, so I'm just flipping that around and placing it so that the leaves are in a place where there's not already leaves, and just going over again with my tool and putting some ink on there. And then it creates this really great frame for your image to go in. I wanted the leaves to sort of overlap, so with my second colour I just moved the stencil across a little bit and went in with the twisted citron there to get that difference in colour and overlapping leaves as well. And then I just used the same technique basically and turned the paper around and moved the stencil again. Made sure the leaves are sort of overlapping in a way that I liked, and then just use that twisting motion to get the colour in there through the stencil. So it's really quite easy, and then it creates this really lovely frame for you to have your images on the inside. Now I'm going to ink up two birds from the Wingman set, just using my extreme black ink, which is Copic friendly, because I'm going to colour them in with Copics. And while I'm doing that, I will show my colouring today, because I thought you'd be interested in how I got the blending of colour with such different colours. And I'm just going to pop on some music so you can just enjoy the colouring, and I will be back later. Okay, so now I've done all my colouring. I'm just going to use the dies, the corresponding dies, to cut out those two beautiful tropical birds. And I usually just trim around my images first and then place them on the dies, unless I've stamped all of the images out using the die as a bit of a pattern and got them all in the right place. So I usually just cut out my images and stick them behind the die with a bit of washi so that they're secured, and then run them through my big shot. So I've just pop those out of the die, and now I'm going to show you how I did the effect with the thanks die. I'm just going to first colour up my paper using the same two colours, the Evergreen bough and the twisted citron. And I wanted the lighter colour on the top of the word die and the darker down the bottom, so I've just done two sort of stripes of colour across the paper there, overlapping them slightly. And you don't have to worry about getting them too perfect with the blending, because as you'll see when you cut out the die, it sort of looks good anyway, even though the blending's not perfect there. Just run that through my big shot, and there's the die piece. So I'm going to do multiple clear embossing layers on this die cut. So I'm just going to grab my tweezers and secure the die. And then first of all, I'm going to use a layer of Versamark ink and cover that die with a layer of the Versamark ink, and then dip it into the clear embossing powder and then heat it with my heat tool. And then while it's still hot, I'm going to quickly dip it back into the embossing powder and recoat it again with the clear embossing powder, and then heat it again. So if you find that you haven't, it's too cold and you've missed the opportunity to cover it again with the clear embossing powder, you can always just put another layer of VersaFine ink on there and make it sticky again, and then just redo it that way. I think I did this about 3 times just to get that really raised sort of shiny look on the thanks die. And then where my tweezers have been holding it, I just zap that quickly with my heat tool to melt that little bit, because there's usually a bit of powder around where the tweezers have held onto the die. Now I'm just going to secure everything onto the front of the card, and also I stamped out some of the sentiments on some black card in white embossing powder. And just a hint there, I do tend to, if there's any little bits of white embossing powder, little flecks that weren't meant to be there, I go over it with my my Copic, black liner there, multi-liner, and cover up any of the whites flecks, and then it actually looks really clean and tidy. So just securing all of that on to the front of the card, and that is it done. So it's a fairly simple card, and I hope you enjoyed watching it today, and that you give masking a go with your stencils, and also layering sort of clear embossing powder on your dies as well to give them a bit of a dimension and a bit of shine, and that you enjoy using the new stamps and dies and stencils from Heffy Doodle Stamps. So I'm just going to pop some other videos that you might enjoy watching right at the end here. So please join us again sometime soon, and thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.